Please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, this morning we are very pleased to have Rabbi Adam Raskin from the congregation Har Shalom. Yes? Okay. In Potomac, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 17. Members, please rise for the invocation.
As we begin this new day, we bow our heads in quiet contemplation of the honor and great responsibility of serving the citizens of the state of Maryland. The deliberations and decisions made on this very day will impact the welfare, safety, and prosperity of the people who are represented by each of you in this chamber. In whatever name we call upon a higher power or greater force in the universe, we ask that the blessings of wisdom, kindness, sensitivity, and righteousness be bestowed upon the President of the Senate, the majority and minority leaders, each senator and staff member of the Maryland State Senate. May the people's business be conducted with dignity, collaboration, and the constant awareness that there is so much more that unites us than divides us. May the warmth of the sun, the new blossoms and rebirth that we witness on this spring morning be a harbinger for our collective emergence from a year of illness, loss, and loneliness. May the blessings of good health and abundant hope be spread throughout our communities, and may we all look forward to widespread renewal and good tidings in the weeks and months to come. Ever thankful for the opportunity to serve constituents and for the trust they have placed in you, we say together, Amen.
All right, the chair recognizes the senator from the 17th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's such a joy each year to bring my own rabbi, Adam Raskin, to help inspire and unite us before we begin our work. It's especially important as we are in the midst of Passover or Pesach. And as folks may know, that is the holiday that we celebrate each year that is about liberation from slavery. So colleagues, as we are conscious in our policies about racial equity, inclusion, diversity, know that this holiday is very special to the Jewish people and that it's one of the excuses for us to reach across boundaries, as my rabbi does every day. He builds community within the Har Shalom community as well as in other faiths and the broader community. So, Mr. President, could we please journalize his wonderful prayer?
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, we will definitely journalize the rabbi's wonderful remarks. He is always a pleasure to have with us each year, and glad that he could join us remotely again this year. All right, has everyone recorded their presence? The senators from, okay, do we have everyone? All right, if so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Senators, this is a big day. We've got a lot of things flying, We'll get to one of them in just a moment, and sorry for the delay in starting. We do have one very important resolution today, and we wanted to make sure that we had the individual who could join us. I believe the resolution is going to be presented from the chair of our Pensions Committee. The chair recognizes the senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we all know that one of our greatest state assets are our public employees, our teachers, our law enforcement, the folks who make the trains run on time. And for the last 14 years, the person we've entrusted with their future, with their pension and with their retirement of over 400,000 public employees in the state of Maryland through a great recession, through challenging budgets, and through an essential period of modernization, Dean Kenderdine has helmed the state retirement and pension system for 14 years. And he's done so with grace, with wisdom, and if you ask any of his employees, with a great sense of humor. And Mr. President, as a freshman who was appointed to head the pension subcommittee, I knew I could always call on Dean at any hour of the day. There have been a number of Friday nights where he, Ann, and I have been on a Zoom working through challenging pension issues. He has been just an incredible mentor to me, and I know every member of his team. But now, after 35 years of state service that has spanned across various departments, various levels of government, and 14 years as at the helm of SRA, Dean is retiring. And with that, Mr. President, I ask that the resolution be read across the desk.
So, as senators may have noticed, we were waiting for Mr. Kenderdine. We did see a wonderful picture of his chair. But
I can try to repeat.
He is there apparently. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and read the resolution. I believe he may be in the room. We just don't have him in the screen. But let's go ahead and read the resolution now.
Be it hereby known to all that the Maryland General Assembly offers its sincerest congratulations to R. Dean Kenderdine in recognition of retirement after more than 40 years of dedicated and exemplary service to the state of Maryland, serving as Executive Director of the State Retirement Agency for the past 14 years. Congratulations. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this, the 31st day of March, 2021.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. The Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates Mr. Kenderdine's 40 years of public service to the state of Maryland. Think about that, 40 years. That is incredible. 40 years of public service, and most recently as the executive director of our state retirement agency for the last 14 years. We want to thank Mr. Kenderdine. If we get him back, we will maybe pop him in, but at this point I think it's just, he can certainly watch the video. This public service it truly, truly matters, and our state is a great state because of our public servants who are so dedicated. So we want to thank Mr. Kenderdine for his incredible service. All right, let's go ahead and move along. The joys of a virtual celebration. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. All right, are there any other announcements today before we jump into things? Other announcements? No? Anything? Okay. All right, without objection, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We have message from the House. These are first reading House bills. They'll head to rules. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 14, Senator Kelly.
Oh, I think we are on the House bills. This is calendar number 30, message from the House.
House Bill 97, Delegate Learman, Department of Housing and Community Development, Office of Statewide Broadband Established Digital Connectivity Act of 2021.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. These will all head to the Rules Committee. Our next order of business, Senators, is a very, very, very big deal. As our current president may say, a big deal. This, I will venture to say, is probably the largest supplemental in the history of the state of Maryland that is coming across the desk. There will be an announcement later today at 1 o'clock where the Speaker and I will be joining the Governor to talk more about what we have before us. Don't want to jump the shark here, but we want to make sure that we read it across the desk so we can get it to the Budget and Taxation Committee. Clerk will read the message from the Executive.
Dear Mr. President, pursuant to the authority conferred on me by Article 3, Section 52, Subsection 5 of the Constitution of Maryland, and in accordance with the consent of the House of Delegates duly granted, I hereby submit Supplemental Budget Number 5 to House Bill 588, Senate Bill 491 in the form of an amendment to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 2022. Supplemental budget number 5 affects the previously estimated funds available for budget operations as shown. Sincerely, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr., Governor.
So, Senators, this is, we will refer the supplemental budget to budget and tax, but we are looking at about a several billion-dollar supplemental budget that is allocated in a number of different ways, impacting, this is the post-pandemic supplemental here. So more to come on that, and we've got 14 days to work through everything, but this is going to be a big deal. Let's go ahead and get into education. We'll start with our Senate bills. We've got Education, Health, Environmental Affairs, calendar number 37. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 318, Senator Bailey, Natural Resources, Fishing and Hunting Rights, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the same form that passed last year. There was no opposition at the hearing. Senate Bill 318 states that the General Assembly finds, 1, that hunting and fishing are a valued part of the state's cultural and social heritage that provide unique recreational benefits to state's residents, and 2, hunting and fishing play an important role in the state's economic and support of conservation, preservation, and management of the state's natural resources. There were no committee amendments. Move with favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 318 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 546, Senator McCray, School Buildings, Drinking Water Outlets, Elevated Level of Lead, Safe Water Drinking Water Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Senate Bill 546 addresses the issue of lead in drinking water in our schools, both public and non-public. It redefines the elevated level of lead to mean a concentration that exceeds 5 parts per billion for the purpose of required lead water testing and remedial measures. Right now, we're still using a 20 parts per billion. This would bring it down to 5 parts per billion and require remediation. And that could be separate water coolers rather than redoing the pipes, which you know can be very expensive. There are 2 committee amendments. First one is technical. The second one clarifies that the bill may not be construed to alter the priority in awarding grants under the Healthy School Facilities Fund. Some of this money can be offset by some federal funds, but we want to make clear that the schools that have more severe problems, over 20 parts per billion, come first, and then we start to use that money for remediation between 5 parts per billion and 20 parts per billion. Mr. President, move adoption of the 2 committee amendments. Favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 546 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 716, Senator Carrozza, Solid Waste Management, Prohibition on Releasing a Balloon into the Atmosphere, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Similar to the Senate Bill SB 28, which this body approved last session, this bill did not make it to final passage due to the COVID-19 crisis. SB 716 prohibits, with specified exceptions, a person from knowingly and intentionally releasing or causing or organizing the release of a balloon in the atmosphere. Once again, this year the legislation has broad bipartisan support from multiple local and state environmental and other organizations, including the Maryland Coastal Bays, headquartered in my district. Beach cleanups in Ocean City and Assateague have resulted in the collection of over 3,500 balloons and strings just in this local area in the last 4 years. Plus, seabirds, sea turtles, seals, and our beloved wild Assateague ponies have been injured or killed after ingesting or becoming entangled in balloons and their strings. Let me be clear, my colleagues, the bill does not apply to those under the age of 13, nor to a balloon that is released for scientific purposes. It does not apply to the unintentional release of a balloon. There are two amendments. One that adds an exemption for a balloon that is attached to a radio tracking device that is released by a person who holds an amateur operator license issued by the Federal Communications Commission. The second amendment would reduce the maximum civil penalty from $250 to $100. I ask for a favorable report on SB 716 with the two amendments.
Mr. President.
The floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield for a question?
Will the floor leader yield? Yes, Senator may proceed.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the bill, and I understand this body passed it last year, but it creates a new civil penalty, and my question is, why is it not already covered under the existing illegal dumping and littering laws?
So there are separate litter laws, but this is the first time that we've had a prohibition on the intentional balloon release. That we have these at the county level, and this is now taking it to the state level. So those other penalties apply to litter laws, not to this specific intentional release of a balloon.
So was this bill, I understand it's already law in a couple of counties, but for example, did Baltimore City or Montgomery County or Prince George's County or all counties across the state weigh in support of this?
I can list the organizations that have supported it. They include the Sierra Club, the Assateague Coastal Trust, the National Aquarium, the Maryland Zoo, Trash Free Maryland, the Maryland Farm Bureau, the Humane Society, and the Animal Welfare Institute.
Thank you. I understand it's possibly a good bill for the environment, but my concern is I believe that the enforcement is going to come down to the jurisdictions, and I think that there are already penalties in place that could cover this. Another question where you mentioned that it doesn't apply to children under 13, but that means that it could apply to teenagers. And so my question is, what is the rationale for that we want teenagers to then be held accountable to these fines that most likely they can't pay, especially in some of the jurisdictions like Baltimore City, for example? I think this would be a burden on a teenager to have to pay something like this, or a family.
Thank you for the question. The bill is really more about the education and awareness and not the penalty, and that's why there's in the bill, number one, the penalty was lowered from $250 to $100, and also the authority for the Maryland Department of Environment to allow locals to enforce it. And again, we were not focused on the penalty part. What we are really trying to do is make sure that we are trying to prevent the knowing and intentional release of these balloons, which is causing the damage to our ponies, to sea life, to the beaches. I actually am part of the Adopt a Beach program with the Ocean City Surf Club in Ocean City, and I've been out there where you're picking up the balloons and the strings, and I've actually seen the damage with our Assateague ponies and others. So again, that's the purpose of the bill. I think we put exceptions in to factor in some of the questions that you're raising, and we lowered the fine. So I would ask for your support.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate it. I do have concerns about especially children that may not even be aware of the law. And while you say it's an educational tool, it actually does have a penalty. I mean, if I were a part of this drafting, I'd probably have suggested that we expand educational outreach to young people, but not expose them to a penalty. So I do have concerns about that. Would you consider an amendment to accept children?
Well,
Senator,
children are exempted.
Senator, really quickly, just as quickly, so the question before the body is on the current amendment. When we get to the favorable committee report, maybe that would be the right time to take that up, Senator, if that's all right.
President.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City. The other senator from Baltimore City. 45, District 45.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. Colleague, I was looking, and I'm thankful that you did reduce the fine from $250 to $100, but I don't sit on JPR, so I don't really have as much knowledge. So imagine if the 13-year-old or 14-year-old can't pay the $100 fine. How do you imagine that playing out?
Well, first of all, there's flexibility. It's a maximum penalty. And number two, again, this would be the knowing and intentional release of the balloons. So we are not after anyone who makes an unintentional release. That is not what we're trying to prevent here. So they're already exempted. So I really think, again, we went through this process. We have, you go through the bill, you see all the exceptions and the lowering of the fine, and and again, it's a maximum penalty. So this is really more about preventing the intentional knowing release of these balloons, and not for someone who inadvertently would release a balloon. In other words, I don't picture any of those cases being charged, and then that's not what we're after here.
I get that that's not what you're after, but once we put it in statute, let's say that we have an ambitious officer, and that young person, that 13-year-old or 14-year-old, has to prove that they didn't knowingly or intentionally release that balloon. How do you see playing out? Let's say that the fine isn't $100, but let's say that it's $50. How do you imagine if that young person, 13, 14, 15 years of age, cannot pay that $50 fine? How do you imagine that playing out?
I actually believe that there's going to be maximum flexibility in the amount of the fine, so I don't believe that those scenarios will pan out as you describe. Again, I think it's less about the fines and more about preventing the intentional release of these balloons.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. That's all of my questions at this moment.
All right.
Mr. President?
Yes, Chair recognizes, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to lay the bill over until the next session tomorrow.
The senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will be laid over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 736, Senator Augustine, Health Occupations, Pharmacist, Administration of Vaccinations, favorable with 3 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 43rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Senate President. Senate Bill 736 is an important bill. What has happened over the period of COVID and also leading up to that the vaccination rates among young children and young people in particular has plummeted, especially in Maryland. And so what this legislation seeks to do is to actually codify a federal openness and ability for pharmacists to provide vaccines to minor children. It also sets a study, it provides an opportunity to study this process, and it also does a sunset. The bill essentially was redrafted by the HDO committee, and our Senate committee conferred. So there was a lot of concern among primary physicians that wellness visits for young children would be reduced if parents could simply take their children to pharmacies. And so we want to make sure that that's not happening. So there is that sunset in the bill. So amendment number 1 makes these technical changes. It also makes it not an emergency bill. It's allowing this to be a temporary authorization for pharmacists to administer vaccinations to children aged 3 to 17, and for only those vaccinations that are approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and by the CDC's advisory committee schedules. It's also saying that the pharmacists have to meet education and training requirements, record the vaccine, and encourages follow-ups. And again, these are all ways of codifying in Maryland law the federal mandate. The amendment also requires that the Prevention, Health, and Promotion Administration make 2 reports so that we understand what has been the impact of allowing pharmacists to provide vaccines. So I asked for a favorable report. I asked for adoption of the committee amendments and a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question is on 3 amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 736 is hereby ordered, printed for third reader. All right, we have a report from the committee, the Finance Committee, report number 35. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 894, Senator Rosapep, Post-Crisis Jobs Act of 2021, favorable with 2 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 894 is an emergency bill that authorizes new or renewing applicants for licenses or permits issued under the Business Occupations and Professions, Business Regulation, Health Occupations, or Education articles to complete their education training or continuing education training requirements through a specified digital learning program. The bill also establishes 3 new workforce development grant programs within the Maryland Department of Labor, including the Digital Learning Conversion Grant Program, the Basic Numeracy and Literacy Skills Grant Program, and the Recruitment of High Growth Industry Workers Grant Program. All 3 grant programs have been mandated, have mandated appropriations for inclusion in the fiscal 2023 budget. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 exempts 2 health occupations boards and massage therapists from the digital learning provisions, strikes the requirement regarding the use of funds for community colleges, authorizes the sharing of UI data with local workforce investment boards to match workers with employers, allows certain funds to be used for administrative costs, and perhaps most importantly, requires that specified federal funds be used to fund the 3 grant programs in all instances. So again, we're talking, Mr. President, entirely about federal money here. The bill, this emergency bill, passed unanimously out of the Senate Finance Committee, and with that, I'd move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first on the amendments. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Yeah, the floor leader would yield.
Will the floor leader yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator may proceed.
Was this, did this have a secondary committee?
Yeah, B&T. And sponsor the bills on B&T, so I'll yield any particular whatever happened in B&T, but yes.
Yeah, I noticed you said it came out unanimously out of Finance. Do you know what the vote was out of B&T?
I'll have to yield to the chair or the sponsor of the bill on that one. I don't have that. I've got the vote count in the Finance Committee was 11 to 0. Hold on a second. Yes, sir.
Does the chair
9 to 4 in B&T.
9 to 4. Okay, can I just lay this over so I can see what the opposition was?
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will be laid over under the rule. All right, we have a report from the Budget and Taxation Committee. This is report number 25. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 81, Senator Ellis, Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project funding, favorable with 2 amendments.
Senate Bill 81. Chair recognizes the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that we've considered in committee, and we're trying to come up with a way to get this project jump-started. This is the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project, and they need funding to do a NEPA study. So what we've done is we've amended the bill that makes an appropriation that would be at least $5 million if the federal government provides matching funds. So the federal government comes through with the project, which is going to need a lot of federal dollars with future stimulus packages, we will match their commitment. We have committee amendments to redraft the bill and basically move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 81 is hereby ordered, printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 659, Senator Gazzoni, Historic Revitalization Tax Credit, Small Commercial Projects, Alterations, favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. 659 increases to $5 million the total small commercial historic revitalization tax credits in the Maryland Historical Trust may award, thereby increasing the small commercial credit funding by $1 million. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Discussion on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 659 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 887, Senator Elfrith, property tax credit, business entities, state of emergency, favorable.
Chair recognizes sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 887 is similar to a local bill we saw and voted on just last week. But this is a statewide bill that does the same thing at the statewide level and enables counties and municipalities to grant a property tax credit for real or personal property owned or leased by a business entity affected by a specified state of emergency. County or municipal governments may provide for the amount, duration, and any other specifics for implementing the credit. This is going to give our counties and municipalities flexibility for our small businesses during states of emergency. There are no committee amendments. I would like to thank the minority leader for working with me on this, Mr. President, and I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Question on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 887 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 958, Senator Zucker, non-public special education schools, state contribution increase, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 958 is pertaining to non-public special education schools. As you know, there are students within the Maryland public school system who learn differently in the school, and based on their needs, they become learning disabled, and as a result, the state of Maryland and local governments pays for them to go to this non-public special education school where they go from learning disabled to learning enabled. What we've seen, though, is that we've seen educators within these facilities teaching public school students that are there, but yet what we found is them making anywhere between $2,000 to $23,000 less than your public educators. So what this bill does is it gives them a one-time salary increase in FY 2023. The amendment that the Budget and Taxation Committee adopted allows them to utilize unencumbered non-placement funds. That way it has no impact on Maryland's bank account, general funds. There's no opposition to the bill, passed unanimously out of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'd move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 958 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we have a special order calendar. This is calendar. Did I miss something? Oh, yes, Chair recognizes Chair of Finance.
We had a second calendar that you skipped before you went to budget and tax. We did 35, we have calendar 36.
I think, Senator, that one has House bills. We're trying to get through all the Senate bills.
Okay.
So we got a special order calendar with the Senate bill. This is calendar 38. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 515, Senator Klossmeyer, criminal procedure, registered sex offenders, entry onto school property. This is an emergency bill. The question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can we special order this to the afternoon session today, please?
Senator has moved to special order the bill into the afternoon session. Any objections to the Senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered. Bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time this afternoon. All right, let's get through the, we got one third reading Senate bill. Do we have a quorum call here? Let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. This is a third reading calendar. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 852, Senator Huff, Crimes, Penalties, and Procedure, Violent Firearms Offender Act of 2021. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 852 is on third reading for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'd urge the body to vote no on this bill. This is a bill that is sort of one of those last vestiges of mass incarceration that overly penalizes certain offenses. We didn't have a great amount of discussion in the committee, but last year a very similar bill did pass the Senate, but of course it was killed in the House. I do believe that the bill warrants greater scrutiny, greater discussion, and that it really flies in the face and is a major conflict to everything that we've worked on this session when it comes to justice initiatives, when it comes to racial equity initiatives. Maryland needs to move out of the business of being the most horrific incarcerator of black people in this country. This bill is not needed. We have penalties on the books for crimes. We have adequate penalties on the books for these crimes. It does not bring anything, it does not add anything, and I don't think that a vote for this bill would put any of us on the right side of history, so I'd urge everyone to vote no.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from Prince George's.
Yes, I just need to ask the chair a question.
Will the chair yield to a question?
What was the vote on this bill in the committee?
I believe it was 7-4. 6-5, sorry.
I'm sorry.
6-5.
6-5?
Yes.
6-4 and 5 against?
Yes.
Correct.
All right. We further discussion?
Mr. President, I'd move
Senator, just give us a moment. Any senators who have not yet can we hit our buttons off, please? Can we make sure our buttons are? Are there any senators who have not yet spoken? Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Sure, Senator from Baltimore City has something to say, but look, I just wanted to first say that we passed this bill. I think maybe 3 people voted against, or 4 people voted against this, and it was part of an omnibus package. But just to be clear on the provisions, a lot of them, I mean, if you were to read these out loud, I think would make some sense to folks. So I want to just reread what the bill actually does, so that folks are informed what they're voting on. So alters some of the penalties related to firearms offenses, and that includes, that basically says that, look, if you use a firearm, use, not mere possession of a firearm in the commission of a felony, that's a crime of violence. Right now it's not. We had, during a debate several years ago, that was kind of excluded and separated out. It also, you remember the debate that we had last year on interlocutory appeals, which is an evidentiary hearing. It allows for those weapons, those dangerous weapons that have permeated into our state, to be used in this additional evidentiary hearing, things like that. So I just want to make sure that there are no mandatory minimums in this. I think if you look through the fiscal note, you look through the debate that we had here on the floor last year, you'll find that this is not a bill that aimed at mass incarceration or appeals to the vestiges of our criminal justice system. It addresses our most violent offenders and gun violence in our city and in our state.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City.
Mr. President, I'd like to special order the bill, if the chair would agree.
The chair recognizes the chair of the committee. Floor leader.
I'm amenable to that. We can have more discussions offline. It's fine.
All right. The request is to special order the bill. Senator, what was, just to make sure we understand the motion, when was the special order to? Senator from Baltimore City.
April the 14th, Mr. President, but I'd say next.
Okay, Senator.
The appropriate time in the next session tomorrow or Monday?
Chair recognizes the floor leader.
How about tonight?
Senator wishes to amend the motion to tonight. Does the Senator have an issue if we amend the motion till tonight?
Mr. President, because I think the issues are confusing and members of the body have just heard some statements that could be conflicting, I really would like to give people more time to examine the bill and make an informed decision. So for that reason, I would ask that it be at least until tomorrow, because
Right,
many
so the Senator
people will
presses
have
the motion
committee.
on to tomorrow. I think we know the issues. Let's do question is on the special order until tomorrow. All in favor of the special order, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. The noes have it. Does the Senator want to amend the motion?
Mr. President, I'd like to have
It's already
a roll
been
call.
Senator, it's already been voted at this point. We could amend it to tonight. Does the Senator want to make the motion to tonight?
Well, tonight is better than now, but so we can
All right,
do
so
that.
the Senator has amended the motion to tonight. The Chair is approved. Are there any objections to the Senator's motion? Chair recognizes the Senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know what the motion is, but maybe a point of personal privilege or point of order. I would like an opportunity to look at this. I look at the vote of the committee vote, and so I really believe that I need more than just this evening to really explore, the implications of this. So I don't know if I'm able to make a motion to special order till tomorrow, but I think that that's a reasonable time. Give time for it to pass if it needs to.
Senator, the motion on the motion before the body is to special order the bill until the second session. Certainly, if were to come up, if this motion were to pass, the Senator could special order the bill again. Any motion would be in order at that point. So the question before the body is whether to special order until tonight. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time this evening. All right. We've got a third reading calendar now of House
Sorry,
bill.
Mr. President.
Senator,
I was waiting to
what
be
purpose does
recognized.
the Senator rise?
It went fast, but I believe that I would have the right to put another motion in for another time. I believe that would be in order.
Senator,
It's
that
not?
would be out of order at this period.
Okay, this is very disappointing, Senator President.
Okay, thank you, Senator. All right, third reading calendar, number 12. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 12, Delegate Watson, alcoholic beverages, sale or delivery for off-premises consumption.
All right, House Bill 12 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 12, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 14, Delegate Kerr, Pharmacist, prescription drug and device labels, expiration dates. This is an emergency bill.
House Bill 14 is on third reader for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 14, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 72, Delegate Anderton, County Boards of Education, Student Transportation, Vehicles and Report.
House Bill 72 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 72, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 135, Delegate Young, Pharmacist, Administration of Self-Administered Medications and Maintenance Injectable Medications, Christopher King Access to Treatment Act. This is an emergency bill.
House Bill 135,
President.
third reader for final passage. This is an emergency bill. Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore and Howard counties.
Yeah, we're trying to work out an amendment with the House Health and Government Operations Committee to see if we can address some of the concerns that have been brought up on the House side in this bill. So I'd request a special amendment or special order until tomorrow so that we can try to work this out.
Senator requests a special order until the appropriate time tomorrow. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
That's fine.
All right, on the special order, no problems from the committee. Are there any objections to the Senator's special order? Without objection, so ordered. The bill will be special order to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 204, Delegate Learman, Environment and Natural Resources, Complaints, Inspection and Enforcement, Information Maintenance, and Reporting.
House Bill 204 is on third reading for final passage.
Mr. President.
Any discussion? Chair recognizes Senator from the 29th District.
I have an amendment.
Senator has an amendment. Senator, if you could read the amendment number, please.
123322-1.
All right, Senator, give us just one moment. All right, Senator, may I explain the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. President. The House added an amendment to this bill to delay the Department of Natural Resource reporting until 2023. This provision is not in the bill as it passed the Senate. There is no reason to delay this data. The data exists. DNR simply doesn't want to do it. This simply puts the data into a report for us in the General Assembly so that we can have this data moving forward when it comes to making decisions concerning the precious natural resources that we are all here to work with. This bill, we worked, the senator from Annapolis and I worked bipartisan on this bill. I'd appreciate that you move for the adoption of favorable on this amendment.
All right, senators move the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Mr. President, we see it as a favorable amendment to the committee.
All right, no objections from the committee. Are there any objections to the amendment? Seeing none, without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? All right, House Bill 204 is on third reading for final passage. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 204, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 205, Delegate Resnick, Public Schools, Provision of Menstrual Hygiene Products Requirements.
House Bill 205 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 205, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 264, Delegate Charkoudian, Solid Waste Management, Organics, Recycling and Waste Diversion, Food Residuals.
House Bill 264 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 264, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 293, Delegate Stein, Natural Resources, Organized Killing Contest Restrictions.
House Bill 293 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? Senators, if there's, it sounds like there's some, I don't know, music or something. If we could just please make sure to turn our sound off on phones or computers. All right, if there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 293, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 363, Delegate Learman, Maryland Public Ethics Law, Retaliation for Reporting or Participating in an Investigation Prohibition.
House Bill 363 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 363, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to calendar 13. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 517, Delegate Watson, Clean Energy Loan Program, Remediation Resiliency.
House Bill 517 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 517, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 518, Delegate Dumais, Public Libraries, Electronic Literary Product Licenses, Access.
House Bill 518 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 518, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 540, Delegate Morgan, Interstate Occupational Therapy Licensure Compact.
House Bill 540 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 540, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 679, Delegate Rogers, Anne Arundel County, Alcohol Beverage Class MT License.
House Bill 679 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 679, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 680, Delegate Rogers, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners, Chief Inspector.
House Bill 680 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 680, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 745, Delegate Lukey, Election Law, Early Voting Centers.
House Bill 745 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
Senator has an amendment. Senator, could please read the amendment number.
It is House Bill 745, 693-420/1. It's been a little hectic, so the amendments are just coming in, so I apologize.
All right, 420. Just give us one moment, Senator. All right, Senator may proceed.
Yeah, this is a very simple amendment. It says that this is an important issue, that we have early voting centers, but the state should pay for it. We continue to see unfunded mandates down to the counties, whether it's Kerwin or other things. They just keep coming and coming and coming, but we don't give the money to the counties to implement it. And so this simply says the state should provide the money for them to do it. It's a good idea, so we should pay for it and stop just sending all these unfunded mandates down to the counties.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader. Chair of the committee.
Mr. President, we haven't contemplated this. We haven't had that discussion. For this to be added at this late date, we think it may be inappropriate. I think it's an issue we can take up next year. The issue of how to split cost between the county and the state is not a new one. We've had it for a number of years. We had a few bills earlier in the session, a month ago actually, where we talked about this. I think at this late date, without having a debate, I would have to encourage a red vote. Part of the idea here was to allow additional early voting sites, either 1 or 2 or even 0, depending on your location. We saw an increase in early voting. We think it be done in a reasonable cost. So, Mr. President, for those reasons, I would urge a red vote in rejection of this amendment.
All right. Any further discussion? Any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I totally agree with the minority leader in the substance of what he's trying to do. This is something that I think is important. We need guardrails for our 24 counties in terms of funding. They had unexpected costs last year when the governor changed from sending everyone a ballot to sending everyone an application. So rather than sending a ballot, the locals then had to send an application, which was returned, and a ballot, which was returned. It was twice as much work. Having said that, and while I strongly believe that we should do that and do this year, this is not the right vehicle. So I will be voting red, but I am hopeful that the minority leader will work with me and others to make sure that we can find an opportunity to do that this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? All right. All in favor? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed, nay. The noes have it. All right. The senator's amendment is rejected. All right.
That wasn't so convincing. Could we just have a roll call?
Senator, the vote has been taken. The vote has been taken.
Okay.
All right.
I have another amendment.
Senator has another amendment. Amendment number, please, Senator.
Yes. Same House bill. And then 383225/1.
Give us just one moment. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you. We had a similar amendment on a different bill, so the committee will be aware of the basic concept of this. What this bill before us does is it sets out criteria for the boards to consider when they put early voting centers in place. This bill, or this amendment, does nothing to stop the equity of where it's placed. It's just a clarifying to make sure the intent is proper. And there is a provision, there's 5 things they list out, and you can read the bill if you want to see them, but one of them says equitable distribution. And as you know, equity is in the eyes of the beholder. In our committee hearings, we see it all the time. One side thinks it's fair, the other side doesn't think it's fair. So we don't want the boards making up their own mind, as we have other provisions in this bill that clearly state what is equitable. So this one just says, based on geographical distance for the rural communities, they will take that into consideration. It doesn't mean they have to do it. It just says in their deliberation, they will consider that. So I hope this is a friendly amendment.
Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. It wasn't a friendly amendment when it was offered in committee, and it's neither a friendly amendment now. Ladies and gentlemen, the law is very clear and very expansive. It talks about proximity, accessibility, equitable distribution. It really takes care of it. And I have to say, as you are well aware, the local boards of election make these decisions, and unless they take an egregious action, which would go up to the state, the local board. So on the Eastern Shore, for example, the local board of elections would address this. And we think in those jurisdictions, they're being fair and reasonable to ensure that all voters in the county have an equitable right to get to early voting site. We think this is unnecessary, and for the second time, the committee urges a rejection of the amendment.
All right. On the amendment, Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, colleagues, on this issue, we went through this in my county, in St. Mary's County, in the last election, where they decided to put in a second early voting center. But the issue was, when they did that, they did not look at the geographical makeup of the county. They simply said, we're going to put the voting center right here, just minutes and miles, just a few miles away from the other voting center that already existed. Now, it takes an hour to drive from one end of the county to the other. And I do think if we look at this, that the intent should be that they have to look at it geographically. And that clearly was not the intent. And the law did not address that. And this amendment would address that, and it would make it even for every voter. so that they have to look at that. I urge a green vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, any further discussion on the amendment? If there are no senators who wish to speak, the chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you very much. Just to be clear, I know the chairman emphasized this a second time. This is the first time on this bill. We had another bill that we had a similar, so this is the first time this has been presented on this bill. Again, I will say, equity is in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't take much for you to understand that, pick an issue in your committee. One side completely thinks it's fair to do this. Another one thinks it's completely fair to do that. They both can't be right. So what we did in this bill is we put qualifiers and we clarified as far as disenfranchised communities, proximity and all that. But for some reason, we don't want to put geographical or rural areas. And I'm not going to go to the intention of what this bill is doing, but we have a history in this body of politically making it advantageous to one party over the other. You look at our gerrymandered maps. We are the poster child in America for gerrymandered maps for political reasons. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be on Republican side in other states. It shouldn't be in Democrat sides in this state. What I'm looking for is fairness. And when we're trying to just put a little clarification in here for geographic areas and our rural communities, when there are other provisions in here clarifying for some that tend to vote Democrat, I think it's a reasonable amendment. I'm not so sure why we wouldn't want the board to consider this when we clearly clarify it for other reasons. So I'm a little offended that this somehow just goes over the top, that we can put clarifications for other areas if you look at the language, but when we bring up a concern, all of a sudden, no, it's inherent in that. But we want the boards to have direction in this. We don't want them making up their minds saying, well, I think this is fair. We don't have to take geographic consideration. That's equitable. Under this bill, they can do that because it's not specified. Just like you fight for your districts, we should have one Maryland, and this is a reasonable amendment, and I ask you to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair, we have senators not yet spoken who wishes to speak out. But Chair recognizes Senator from District 10, followed by the Senator from District 1.
Yeah. Mr. President and members, I don't think it's unfair to consider geography, but that isn't the only variable that ought to be considered. And in fact, where the demographic clusters are of voters ought to be considered. And to do what this amendment requires could very well, in some counties, end up with one or two people who live far away getting served more easily, while great clusters of people who live midway would not have the same accommodation. So I don't think that alone this is a fair amendment, and I don't think it has anything to do with in what party someone is. No matter whether they're in my district or someone else's district or in a rural district, we've got to consider other variables, and how the population centers are clustered makes more sense as a way of determining where to put drop boxes, rather than that one or two people might live much further away than where a particular drop box would be. So I don't think it's reasonable, though I think it's well intended. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 1, followed by the Senator from District 28.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, anytime I hear about the geographic distribution, I'm going to, if my memory is correct, when we first passed this about putting voting places in certain areas, I represent, and I live in Garrett County, which is the most rural county in the state of Maryland. According to the last census, we had like 43 people per square mile, which is pretty spread out. And based on the content of the bill that passed originally, I'm not sure what year it was, Garrett County, and I think it was based on population, was allowed one. And they did one. I got an amendment somewhere or got it fixed some way. I said, look, you got to look at geography here. The one went to Oakland. People living in the northeast part of Garrett County is like 50, 60 miles one way. If you're asking them to drive that distance to vote, we ought to be able to at least have two based on geographical spread. We got that in, so now they have one in Oakland, they have one in Grantsville, so they have one in the southern part of the county, one in the northern part of the county. So I think geographic issues do need looked at, along with population. You know, we have, what do they call a one person, one vote? So don't negatively impact people just because they're spread out a lot more than certain other areas of the state. So I ask people to vote for this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 28.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. My district, Charles County, most of Charles County, we have a large population center, which is Waldorf, 74,000 folks in that community, very compact community. Last election, there were no drop boxes, well, during the primary, no drop boxes, no early voting centers within that population proper. The voting centers were outside of Waldorf, within a short distance from each other. Besides Waldorf, Charles County, in the top, I think, 6th largest county land-wise in Maryland, very rural, lots of rural areas. And if we look at putting early voting centers, geographic distance, the only benefit will be for the trees. I mean, because you'll go far distances with very few residents. And so we'll have so many voting centers with no residents, very few residents, to really utilize that. I think the posture of the bill is proper. It takes into consideration population centers. Having distance base would be basically wasting a lot of money and election workers and will not serve the population, so I urge rejection of this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 6, followed by the senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finding out more about other counties in the city of Baltimore and locations of early voting places and polls that they've had, I found that a good thing. I found that some areas were well represented and had great opportunity to vote, but I found other areas did not. People had to go farther. Seniors had to go farther. I mean, they had to go much farther than they need to, and that's not necessary. I think we need to help this out. And at every district and every county, we can do better. We can help those that need that help. And I think with this amendment, we can benefit through this. We all can, in every district and every county. That's why I'm going to go agree on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sympathetic to this amendment because we had an issue at the Howard County Fairgrounds where half of the people in my district were disappointed they couldn't vote early at the Howard County Fairgrounds. However, I had a very lengthy conversation afterwards with our local SBE. And this is actually a super complicated issue that needs to be decided at the local level. During the committee hearings, I was convinced, and in our conversation, that this is covered under the equity issue. And I also strongly suggested that the State Board of Education work on promulgating regulations to help our locals work on this. So just to add a bit of levity in here, we spent several Howard County delegation meetings trying to figure out the number of liquor licenses that were allowed in each part of the county. And this is much more important than that. And that's why I urge a red vote on this amendment, because it is really important, but it needs to be decided at the local level, and I encourage the State Board of Elections to promulgate regulations to that effect.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. In my county, in Carroll County, we have two early voting centers. One is in the city of Westminster, which is centrally located, and one is down in the southern part of the county. And generally, I believe that serves our county pretty well. Most people, not all, but most are within no more than maybe 10 to 12 miles of a voting center. Sometimes that can take 20 minutes or so, depending on where you are in the county, but most people are within a few minutes, or at least within a few miles. But my private sector job takes me to Delaware quite frequently, at least before the pandemic hit, more frequently than after. And I have taken occasion to drive through District 36 quite often to get to Dover, or sometimes drive through District 37 to get to the southern part of Delaware more quickly. And when you drive there, or perhaps if you ever go out to Deep Creek Lake, there are vast expanses in some parts of our state. And the gentleman from Southern Maryland was talking about the situation in his home county where they put 2 voting centers, which is great, but they put them within 5 miles of each other. This is a very reasonable amendment. This doesn't undercut any real local ability. All it really does, based on how I read it, is say we need to account for the fact that you need to keep a common sense amount of distance between voting sites and geographic locations in rural areas. And so, as I said, in Carroll County, we've sort of spaced ours out about 10 miles apart, 10, 11, 12 miles apart, but that serves most of the population, but it helps the rural areas too. But in whether you're out in Western Maryland or, as I mentioned, the Upper Shore, you drive through parts of Queen Anne's and Kent County, there's a long distance between Centerville and Millington. So I would just suggest that this is a good amendment. Which would demonstrate some fairness from the body. It's not going to harm anything we're doing in our big population centers, and we don't want to do that. So I ask the body to accept this amendment and support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the Chair of the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I really didn't want to have to get up again, but some things have been said that I think really have to be addressed. The intent of this bill, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to the intent of this bill, was to add early voting centers. So for the people who thought access was a problem, that's what this bill tried to address, and I'm hoping all the people who've been concerned about access will be voting for this bill. And I hate to say it, but the majority of the boards of elections are of the gubernatorial party, of the reigning gubernatorial organization. So in the rural area, while it's a nonpartisan position, the majority of the members are from the governor's party. But I trust they're doing things generally fairly, although that wasn't the case in Charles County and it had to be corrected. The bill uses 2 elements for the local Board of Elections: center of population and county-wide distribution. And they have to balance that. County-wide distribution, consider the whole county, and also where the location are centered. In other words, if you want to put one in Part A and Part B, close to 15% of the population, you're disenfranchising the population. To ignore the population centers is to bury our head in the sand and say, in fact, it does have a political bent to it. One community in Charles County didn't get an early voting center, and after some work and effort by a number of people in this chamber, a second one was added. This amendment talks about distance. The implication being, if you have one here, the other one has to be somewhere else. Even if it's not centered among a significant population. Objectively, and maybe not consciously, but objectively the result is of taking an early voting center away from large segments of the population. If you want to do that, vote for the amendment. But we have a very balanced approach in this law, and we hope we can trust the local boards of elections that they don't act irresponsibly or in a biased fashion. This, I believe, adds a bias to the process that the local boards of elections have to undergo. Mr. President, members of the Senate, I think this is ill-fated and the wrong direction, and I urge a red vote and a rejection.
All right, question is on the amendment. Any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate the good dialogue on this. I really can't believe we're debating this hard. This is kind of like the theme of the session. It's like
Senator Maryland, Senator Maryland.
It's just, we put amendments up, thoughtful amendments. This is not a gotcha amendment. This is a sincere amendment, and we're debating that. And to just bring it back to the context of the bill, I know some of you may not have read it completely, but the senator from Baltimore said, we need to consider the density. And I agree with her. And you know what? So did our committee, because it's in the bill. It's already in the bill. We have to consider that. And we have to consider minority groups. And we actually have to consider if they're 50 miles out or 100 miles out, because that's in the bill here. But if you're not a minority and you're 100 miles out, you don't have to do it in this bill, because we didn't want to clarify that. We clarified it for minorities, but we don't want to clarify it for anybody else. And one of the comments was, we're going to have it all out there in just the trees. Well, the way this is, it says the board must consider. And it looks at it and it says, if there's just trees out there, they're going to say, look, we're not going to put one out there. We're just going to consider that with all these other things. So this just tells the board what they need to consider. And he said, we should trust the board. Let them do. But you know what? We're not trusting them, because if you look at the language, we put 5 specific qualifications in there, so we don't have to just trust, but we trust and verify. But we want to say those who are rural communities, in the language it says equitable, and let's just trust that word equitable. But again, I go back. It's in the eyes of the beholder. I'll give you an example. We put a rule change in this year, and we put it before the body. And the one side said, we think you're being treated fairly, equitable. The other side completely disagreed. And if we had a rule in there that said, we had to treat everybody equitable, you know what? You would interpret it saying, we are treating you equitable. But the other side would say you're not. So it's in the eyes of the beholder, and that's why we're simply asking for a clarification. I don't think this hurts at all to say that the board shall simply consider. It's not mandating that they put some center. It's just one of the factors of the 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment, say
roll call,
aye.
please.
Senator has requested a roll call vote. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator. The senator. Okay. With 30 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Chair recognizes the minority leader.
One last amendment, and
Another
then I'll sit down. Thank
All
you.
good.
Thank you for
This is the Senate. This
your
is the Senate.
consideration.
Important issues.
Okay, this same bill, and the last amendment is 413023/1.
023. One moment, Senator. All right, Senator, may I explain the amendment?
So what this simply does is ask the Board of Election to look at the previous election, this election coming up, and the next election, and look at trends to see if we need less early voting centers, or this is a good number, or we need to increase the centers. And we see a lot of mail-in ballots coming. I don't know where it's going to go with the pandemic. It certainly was popular. Maybe it'll be just as popular going forward. But what this says is have them look at it, report back to us, and say, is this a good number, or do we need to increase it or decrease it? I think it's important that we have data, and then we can make the correct decisions. That's it.
Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Mr. President, we come back every year, and this bill's in front of us because of complaints for this very issue. We have added them in the past, and we sort of learn from our experience. Montgomery County has had a debate over early voting centers off and on for the last 2 years. Earlier in the process, we had set a number and saw that was too small, and more people have been attracted to early voting. It's also a moving situation with more people voting by mailed ballots. So I think to have a static report for one election doesn't move the ball forward on our understanding of how elections should be held or how many early voting centers should be. There's some talk about more and more people are not voting on election day. And that's where some of the conversation has been for those people who are interested in voting law. This calls for a report each year, each election cycle. We get numbers. And depending on the number of people and the experience of how many people are waiting in line for how long, we make judgments. So in 2 years, we can come back after the next cycle and say, you know what, we have too many or too few. We can have that conversation. To ask for a static report in whatever it is, 21 or 22, doesn't give us any sense, and I don't think we need legislation to ask for the results of how many people voted early. So for those reasons, Mr. President, I would urge rejection of the amendment.
All right. On the amendment, any further discussion on the amendment? Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you. And I know he hadn't seen this amendment, so I apologize. But just to clarify, this is not a static after one election. This is going to be a report in 2025, and it looks at several elections to look at the trends to see if less people are coming in person, if more people are doing mail-in votes. And it's not taking a decision whether we need more or less or the same. It's just asking them to report the data. It may be more, it may be less, it may be the same. So it's just information. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendment, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. Noes have it. The Senator's amendment fails. All right, are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? If not, any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 745, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 871, Delegate Charles, consolidation of the Procurement Improvement Council and the Council for the Procurement of Health, Educational, and Social Services.
House Bill 871 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 871, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 970, Delegate Johnson, Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact. This is an emergency bill.
House Bill 970 is on third reader for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 970, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1232, Delegate Brooks, Alcoholic Beverages, Manufacturer Licenses, and Off-Site Permits. This is an emergency bill.
House Bill 1232 is on third reading for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1232, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we have some second readers. Again, these are the House Bill second readers. We're going to start with Judicial Proceedings Committee, calendar number 31. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 670, the Speaker, Police Reform and Accountability Act of 2021, favorable with 16 amendments.
Chair recognizes Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 670, as amended, this bill would make changes that generally relate to law enforcement. Among other things, the bill repeals the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights and establishes provisions that relate to statewide accountability and discipline process for law enforcement officers. It alters the requirements for the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission regarding training and police certification. It establishes 2 higher education financial assistance programs for police officers with mandated appropriations. It increases civil liability limits applicable to police misconduct lawsuits. It requires a reporting on SWAT team activity and the use of force complaints, and authorizes the forfeiture of pension contributions under specified circumstances. The provisions of this bill take place July 1st, 2022. Mr. President, there are 16 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions of the bill relating to warrants. Amendment number 3 alters provisions of the bill relating to the requirement for police officers during specified stops relating to recordings of police officer actions. Amendment number 4 alters provisions of the bill relating to higher education financial assistance programs established under the bill. Amendment number 5 strikes provisions of the bill relating to employee assistance programs. Amendment number 6 alters provisions of the bill applicable to civil liability limits in lawsuits involving police misconduct. Amendment number 7 strikes provisions of the bill relating to disclosure of specified records under the Maryland Public Information Act. Amendment number 8 strikes provisions of the bill relating for specified independent investigations. Amendment number 9 alters provisions of the bill relating to MPTSC. Amendment number 10 strikes provisions of the bill relating to body-worn cameras. Amendment number 11 strikes provisions of the bill relating to early intervention programs. Amendment number 12 strikes provisions of the bill relating to the use of force. Amendment 13 strikes provisions of the bill relating to specific acquisition of specified equipment from specified surplus programs. Amendment number 14 alters provisions of the bill relating to discipline of police officers. Amendment number 15 alters provisions of the bill relating to the forfeiture of benefits by law enforcement officers convicted of specified crimes. Amendment number 16 alters provisions relating to effective dates and establishes specified contingency. Mr. President, with that, I'd ask that the bill and the 16 amendments be laid over under the rules.
The senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will be laid over under the rule. All right. We've got the Finance Committee. Back to Finance. This is Calendar 36. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 6, Delegate Feldmark, Economic Development, Maryland Technology Corporation alterations, favorable with 1 amendment.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. As amended, House Bill 6 is identical to Senate Bill 80, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill adds 4 members to the Board of Directors of the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, 2 appointed by the President of the Senate and 2 appointed by the Speaker of the House, subject to specified conditions. The bill also renames TEDCO's Executive Director position to be Chief Executive Officer. Requirements and duties of the position are otherwise unchanged. The amendment specifies that with respect to the representative appointed by the governor to represent a historically black college or university, that any single historically black college or university may not be represented for more than 2 consecutive terms. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 6 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 13, Delegate Lukey, Influence on Collective Bargaining and Prohibition on Use of Public Funds, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 13 prohibits a unit of state, county, or municipal government from knowingly using public funds to influence the decisions of public employees to support or oppose an employee organization that represents or seeks to represent the employees of the unit or become a member of an employee organization. State or local governments, however, may perform specified functions, including conducting activities or incurring expenses connected with addressing grievances or administering a collective bargaining agreement, allowing an employee organization access to public facilities, or performing specified required activities. Mr. President, no amendments. There is no fiscal impact. I move adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Question on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 13 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 416, Delegate Belcastro. Healthcare facilities, assisting living programs, requirements for Alzheimer's special care units and regulations. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. House Bill 416 is similar to Senate Bill 204, which unanimously passed the Senate. The bill requires the Maryland Department of Health to establish for Alzheimer's special care units and assisted living programs the number of dementia-specific training hours for staff, the topic content of the training requirements, and sufficient staffing requirements to meet the needs of residents. In addition, the department must convene stakeholders to make revisions to assisted living regulations dated September 30, 2016, and adopt the revised regulations by December 1, 2022. There are no amendments, no fiscal impact. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Discussion on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 416 is hereby ordered passed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 654, Delegate Chi, Maryland Small Business Innovation Research and Technology Transfer Incentive Program alterations. Favorable with one amendment.
House Bill 654. Oh, Chair recognizes chair of the committee as the floor leader.
As amended, House Bill 654 alters the term Small Business Innovation Research Grant and Small Business Technology Transfer Grant for purposes of the Maryland Small Business Innovation Research and Technology Transfer Incentive Program administered by TEDCO. The bill also, 1, alters the circumstances under which an award or investment recipient may be required to return certain funds. 2, requires the program to prioritize awards to certain small businesses. And 3, expands the types of small businesses to which the program, in coordination with similar programs, is required to conduct marketing and outreach. The amendment expands the types of small business to which the program, in coordination with the similar program, is required to conduct marketing and outreach to include minority-owned business. There is no fiscal impact, no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendment. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 654 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 849, Delegate Rosenberg, Public Health Medical Record Fees. Favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. House Bill 849 prohibits a health care provider or a representative of the health care provider from charging a fee for providing copies of a medical record requested by the patient or other specified persons on behalf of a patient that will be used to support a claim or appeal for Social Security disability income or Social Security benefits. Amendment 1 makes changes to the purpose paragraph. Amendment 2 strikes from the bill some unintended changes to current law relating to handling fees for non-electronic medical records and the maximum amount of a fee that may be charged for subsequent copies of a medical record. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 849 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 989, Delegate Krebs, Public Safety 911 Emergency Telephone System alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee. The floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, House Bill 989 is identical to Senate Bill 714, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill makes various changes to the regulatory structure governing the state's 911 system related to 911 service outages, Maryland 911 board composition and responsibilities, authorized uses of the 911 trust fund, and multi-line telephone systems. The bill also requires the University System of Maryland, in consultation with the Workers' Comp Commission and the Maryland 911 Board, to study the state's workers' compensation laws and the effects of job-related audible or visual trauma experienced by 911 specialists. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 expands the responsibilities of the board and requires the 911 Commission to report certain demographic and employment information related to 911 specialists to the General Assembly, as well as a plan to provide implicit bias training to 911 specialists. Mr. President, I'd move the amendments and the adoption favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 989 is hereby ordered passed to 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1034, Delegate Collison, Prescription Drug Affordability Board, Plan of Action, repeal of date for submission, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you. House Bill 1034 repeals the date by which the Prescription Drug Affordability Board must submit a plan of action, if drafted, to the Legislative Policy Committee for approval. Under current law, the board must submit a plan of action for the process of setting upper payment limits for prescription drug products under certain circumstances. The COVID-19 pandemic has delayed work of the board, and the repeal of the July 1, 2021 deadline will provide the board with needed flexibility. There are no amendments, no fiscal impact, no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Question on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1034 is hereby ordered passed to 3rd reading. All right, Senators, we've, what is it, 1223? We've got a concurrence calendar. Let's take the concurrence calendar up. This is a Senate bill. I missed this one. This is a message from the House number 3. The clerk will read the message.
Senate Bill 14, Senator Kelly, compensation to individual erroneously convicted, sentenced, and confined.
Nope. Senator, I think that is a different one.
No, I didn't.
Madam Clerk.
I got it now.
All right.
Sorry. Senate Bill 433, Senator King, institutions of higher education, state funding revision.
All right. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee. Budget and, the sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. As passed by the Senate, Senate Bill 433 required the appropriation for the community colleges, Baltimore City Community College, and the Sellinger schools to be based on all funding in the budget for the 4-year institutions, no matter where the funds may be budgeted. The House amendments add a requirement for the USM School of Medicine to provide clinical care for certain specialties at the Capital Region Medical Center and to provide specialized clinical care at rural hospitals.
So the floor leader moves the House's amendments. So the question before the body are the House's amendments. Any discussion on the House amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Senators, Senate Bill 433 is now before the body for 3rd reading and final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 433, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, Senators, we are going to pause there. We'll adjourn and we'll reconvene later today. We got a lot of work. There's a lot flying between committees, between chambers. As is the case in this time in session, always remember, that's what my wife always tells me, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it feels in the moment, right? All right, let's go to the chair of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee will meet for bill hearings and voting at 1:45.
1:45, Finance for voting. Chair recognizes Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
EHE will meet at 1:30 for bill hearings.
1:30. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Taxation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget and Tax will meet for a briefing on the supplemental budget at 2 o'clock, joint with Appropriations, and at 3 o'clock, the conference committees for both the budget and the BURFA will be meeting.
2 and 3. 2 and 3. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet at 1:45 for bill hearings, followed by a voting session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other select committees? Select committees? Delegations? Any other announcement? Chair recognizes the Chair of the Prince George's County Delegation.
Yes.
Senator, may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Prince just announcing that the Prince George's County senators will be meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 6 for Prince George's. Any other delegations? Any other announcements?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from the capital city.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, Mr. Kenderdine was not able, it was supposed to be a surprise. I understand there was miscommunication between his wife and his staff, but I just want everybody to know he did hear the resolution and he did hear our applause. And I know he's worked, a number of folks have come up to me, he's worked with his experience and his tenure in state government has stretched 4 decades, and I would just encourage anybody who's worked with Mr. Kenderdine over those decades to please reach out with their well wishes in his retirement. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. And hopefully you saw our video. He's done some great work. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until a new legislative day tonight at 7 p.m.
Without objection, so ordered. 7 p.m. Stay safe, be busy, get the vaccine.